There are footballers who score goals. And then there are footballers who change the emotional story of an entire country. For Jordan, Yazan Al-Naimat became that kind of player. Not because he was the most famous name in Asia, not because he came from one of football's richest systems, not because the whole world expected him to become a star, but because every time Jordan needed a moment, he was there. A run behind the defense, a first touch under pressure, a chip over a goalkeeper, a finish with the whole country holding its breath. And then, just when Jordan finally reached the biggest stage in football, just when the dream became real, the player who helped carry them there was forced to stop. This is not just a story about goals. It is a story about arrival, belief, pain, timing, and heartbreak. It is the story of Yazan Al-Naimat, the striker from Sahab, who helped take Jordan to places the country had never been before, and then had to watch one of those dreams continue without him. Before Asia knew his name, before the Asian Cup final, before the World Cup qualification, before the goals that made Jordan believe, Yazan Al-Naimat was just a forward from Sahab. And that matters, because in Jordanian football, the biggest names usually come from the biggest clubs. Al-Wihdat, Al-Faisali, the Giants, the clubs with history, pressure, fan bases, titles. But Yazan's rise was different. He did not arrive through the most obvious door. He did not come with the spotlight already waiting for him. He came from Sahab, a smaller club, a place where every good performance had to fight for attention, a place where a young striker had to make people look twice. And sometimes that is what makes an underdog story powerful, because nothing feels inherited. Everything feels earned. He began with Sahab around 2018. At first, there was no global noise, no major headlines, no huge transfer machine surrounding him. Just matches, training sessions, runs into space, missed chances, small improvements, quiet belief, and a slow feeling that maybe, just maybe, Jordan had a forward who was different. By 2021, that feeling became impossible to ignore. Yazan scored 13 league goals for Sahab, 13 goals, for a club that was not supposed to dominate Jordanian football. He finished near the top of the scoring race. And even more importantly, he helped keep Sahab alive in the top flight. That is where the story truly begins. Not with a trophy, not with a famous transfer, but with survival. A smaller club fighting to stay up. A young striker carrying pressure. A player learning that goals are not just numbers. Sometimes, a goal keeps a club breathing. Sometimes, a finish can be the difference between staying in the league and disappearing from the conversation. And this is where you can start to understand the kind of striker Yazan was becoming. He was not just a man waiting in the box. He was not only a final touch player. He was a runner, a mover, a striker who liked the space behind defenders, a player who could drag a back line open, a player who could receive the ball while moving and turn a half chance into danger. He had pace. He had balance. He had that forward instinct, the instinct to start running before the defender realizes the pass is even possible. And slowly, Jordan began to notice. The next step came with the national youth setup. In 2021, Jordan's under-23 team won the WAF U23 championship, and Yazan Al-Naimat was named the tournament's best player. That award matters, because it was not just about potential anymore. It was proof. He was not only good for Sahab, he could stand out among some of the best young players in the region. The door was opening, but the real explosion The moment that changed the shape of his career came later that year at the FIFA Arab Cup. Before that tournament, Yazan was not yet a guaranteed star for Jordan. He was not the automatic face of the attack. He had only one senior international goal. He was still, in many ways, a player people were discovering. Then the tournament started, and everything changed. 3 goals in barely more than 170 minutes. A bronze shoe, a breakout, and suddenly, the forward from Sahab was no longer hidden. He was not just a promising young player. He was becoming a national team weapon, and the moment that truly announced him came against Egypt. Picture the scene. Arab Cup, quarter-final. Jordan against Egypt. A huge stage. A packed stadium. Egypt had history. Egypt had stars. Egypt had Mohammed El-Shenawi in goal, one of the most respected goalkeepers in African and Arab football. For Jordan, this was the kind of match where every attack had to be perfect. Every touch had to matter. Every mistake could kill the dream. Only 12 minutes had passed. The match was still young, but the tension was already heavy. Jordan worked the ball forward. Ali Olwan found Yazan, and in that moment, everything slowed down. Yazan received a pass. One touch to set himself. Not a rushed touch. Not panic. A delicate touch. The kind of touch that tells you the striker already knows what he wants to do before the ball arrives. El-Shenawi closed the angle. The defenders tried to recover. The stadium noise rose, and Yazan struck it. Powerfully, cleanly, past El-Shenawi, into the net. Jordan led Egypt, and for a moment, the stadium froze. The Egyptian crowd, so loud before the goal, went quiet. The Jordanian supporters erupted, because they had just seen something bigger than a finish. They had seen a young striker walk into a giant moment, and not blink. That goal did not win Jordan the match. Egypt came back. The game went to extra time. Jordan eventually lost. But sometimes, a defeat can still create a star. Sometimes, the world remembers the player who made the favorites suffer. And after that Arab Cup, Yazan Al-Naimat was no longer just a Sahab story. He was a Jordan story, a regional story, a name people had to take seriously. And when a player breaks through like that, the next question is always the same. Where does he go next? For Yazan, the answer was Qatar. He joined Al-Ahli. There were reports of interest from Europe. There was talk of a Belgian option, but he chose Qatar. And for his career at that point, it made sense, because not every player needs Europe immediately. Sometimes, the next step is not about glamour. It is about rhythm, minutes, responsibility, learning against better defenders, learning how to handle pressure every week, learning how to live as a professional away from home. Qatar gave him that. At Al-Ahli, he started building a new version of himself. The Sahab striker had been raw, fast, hungry, dangerous. But Qatar forced him to sharpen the details. When to press, when to slow down, when to make the run, when to hold the ball, when to go alone, when to wait. These are small things. But for a striker, small things become goals. In 2022, he scored an 82nd minute winner against Salal. Late in the match, legs tired, defenders losing focus. The kind of minute where a striker has to stay alive mentally, and Yazan did. In 2023, he scored against Al-Wakra. In 2024, he scored a 90+10 equalizer against Qatar SC. Think about that. 90th minute, plus 10. The match almost gone. Most players are exhausted. Most players are thinking about the final whistle. But a striker like Yazan is still waiting, still believing one more ball can arrive, still hunting. That is the pattern. He was becoming a player for moments. Late goals, breakaway goals, pressure goals, goals that arrive when defenders are tired and hearts are beating fast. Then came transfer noise, rumors, contract talk, questions about whether he would leave Al Ali. For a rising player, this is part of the journey. Once your name grows, the noise grows with it. People talk, reports spread, clubs move, fans argue, and the player has to stay focused. By August 2024, the official story was simple. Yazan Al-Naimat joined Al Arabi, a bigger platform in Qatar, a new club, a new expectation. And once again, he had to prove himself. He scored in a 4-1 win over Qatar SC. Later, he scored a hat-trick in the QSL Cup against Lusail. But even as his club career developed, the real heart of his story was always Jordan. The national team, the shirt, the flag, the feeling that he was part of something bigger than himself. And then came the tournament that changed Jordanian football forever. The AFC Asian Cup, played in Qatar in early 2024. For Jordan, the tournament was supposed to be difficult, respectable maybe, competitive, hopefully. But nobody expected what was coming. Jordan did not just compete. Jordan became one of the stories of the tournament. And Yazan Al-Naimat became one of the faces of that story. The first warning came against South Korea in the group stage. South Korea were one of Asia's strongest teams. Son Heung-min, big names, big clubs, big reputation. Jordan were not supposed to intimidate them, but Jordan did not play like a team waiting for permission. They pressed, they attacked, they ran into space, and Yazan scored. Jordan drew 2-2. A late own goal denied them what would have been a famous win. But the message was clear. Jordan were not here to admire anyone. They were here to hurt teams. Then came the round of 16. Jordan against Iraq. A match full of emotion before the ball was even kicked. Two Arab nations. Two proud football cultures. Two teams with belief. The stadium was tense. Every duel felt personal. Every tackle had weight. Every attack carried noise. And as halftime approached, the game was still waiting for its first explosion. Then Iraq made a mistake. A sloppy pass. A ball played into danger. The kind of pass defenders regret the moment it leaves the foot. Yazan saw it before everyone else. That is what great forwards do. They do not wait for the mistake to fully happen. They smell it. They move early. He pounced. Suddenly, he was through. The defenders were behind him. The space opened. Jalal Hassan, Iraq's goalkeeper, came rushing out. A goalkeeper in that situation has one job: make himself big. Close the space. Force the striker to panic. But Yazan did not panic. He slowed the moment down. The ball was ahead of him. The goalkeeper was charging. The crowd was rising. And instead of smashing it, instead of forcing power, he chose elegance. A chip. Light. Controlled. Cold. The ball lifted over Jalal Hassan. For a second, it felt like the whole stadium was watching the ball float. Then it dropped. Into the net. Jordan 1. Iraq 0. That was not just a goal. That was personality. A striker who can chip the goalkeeper in a knockout game is telling you something. He is telling you his heart rate is different. He is telling you the pressure does not own him. He is telling you the moment is big, but he is bigger inside it. The match itself became chaos. Iraq came back. Ayman Hussein scored. Then Ayman was sent off after his celebration. Jordan pushed late. The game went into stoppage time. And then Jordan produced one of the wildest comebacks of the entire tournament. Yazan Al-Arab scored. Then Nizar Al-Rashdan scored. Jordan won 3-2. But the spark was Yazan Al-Naimat. His chip opened the door. His composure told Jordan they could win a match like that. And after Iraq, the dream grew. Then came South Korea again. This time, the Asian Cup semi-final. Jordan had already faced them once. Jordan had already shown they could compete. But a semi-final is different. A semi-final does not ask if you can play well. It asks if you can handle history. South Korea had the names. South Korea had the expectation. South Korea had the international stars. Jordan had belief. And that night, belief was enough. Actually, it was more than enough. Jordan did not steal the match. They did not survive for 90 minutes and hope for luck. They controlled large parts of it. They attacked with courage. They pressed with discipline. They made South Korea uncomfortable. And South Korea, a team full of attacking talent, finished the match without a single shot on target. That tells you everything. Jordan were not lucky. Jordan were ready. Early in the match, Yazan had already warned them. He forced a huge save from Jo Hyun-woo. A close-range chance. A striker's chance. The goalkeeper somehow kept it out. The ball hit him. The danger passed. But the message remained. Yazan was coming. Jordan were coming. And after halftime, the moment arrived. South Korea tried to build, but Jordan pressed. The ball was lost. A mistake. A moment of hesitation. And suddenly Jordan were running at the Korean defense. The ball came into Yazan's path. He was central, moving toward goal. The goalkeeper started to come. Defenders scrambled. The stadium noise sharpened. This was not a moment for panic. It was a moment for precision. Yazan took the chance. A lifted right-footed finish, soft enough to rise, strong enough to beat the goalkeeper. Over Jo Hyun-woo. Into the goal. Jordan won. South Korea 0. The semifinal had changed. And if you listen closely to moments like that, you can almost hear a country realizing something at the same time. Wait, we can actually do this. We can reach the final. We can beat the giants. We can make history. Then Musa Al-Tamari scored the second. A brilliant second goal. The kind of goal that sealed the night. Jordan won 2-0. For the first time ever, Jordan were going to the Asian Cup final. And Yazan Al-Naimat had scored in the semifinal. Not against a small opponent. Not in an easy match. Against South Korea. On the biggest night in Jordanian football history up to that point. And then came the final. Jordan against Qatar. The host nation. The defending champions. The team with experience. The team with the crowd. The team with Akram Afif at the center of everything. For Jordan, this was new territory. Their first Asian Cup final. Their biggest match. Their chance to turn a beautiful tournament into a trophy. But finals are cruel. They do not care how romantic the story is. They only care about moments. Qatar took the lead through a penalty. Jordan had to chase. The pressure grew. The minutes passed. Every attack felt like it might be the one. Every Jordanian run carried hope. And then, in the 67th minute, Yazan Al-Naimat created a moment worthy of a final. The ball came from the right side. A cross into the box. Not an easy ball. Not a simple tap-in. It arrived with defenders nearby, with bodies around him, with the pressure of a final sitting on his shoulders. Yazan watched it come, and his first touch was beautiful. Not just controlled, beautiful. He killed the ball, took it away from the defender, set it into his own path. One touch to create the angle, one touch to prepare the strike. Then, left foot, hard, clean, explosive, past Mishal Barsham, into the net. Jordan won. Qatar won. For a few minutes, everything felt possible. The final was alive again. Jordanian fans were alive again. A nation that had never reached this stage before was level in an Asian Cup final, and Yazan had done it. Again, a goal against Korea, a goal against Iraq, a goal against Qatar. Big games, big opponents, big pressure, same result. Yazan Al-Naimat was there, but Qatar retook control. Another penalty. Then another. Akram Afif scored a hat-trick of penalties. Qatar won 3-1. Jordan lost the final. And that is what made Yazan's goal so painful, because it did not feel like a consolation. It felt like hope. It made the trophy feel close, close enough to see, close enough to touch, close enough to break your heart. Jordan left the Asian Cup without the trophy, but they did not leave empty. They left with belief. They left with identity. They left with proof that they could defeat major teams, proof that they could reach finals, proof that their attackers could scare the continent. And after that tournament, Yazan Al-Naimat was no longer just a talented forward. He was a symbol of Jordan's new era. But a great tournament is only the beginning. The harder question comes after, can you do it again? Can you prove it was not a one-time miracle? Can you take that belief and turn it into World Cup qualification? For Jordan, the road to 2026 was the real test. Because the World Cup was not just another tournament. Jordan had never qualified before. Never. For generations of fans, the World Cup was something Jordan watched from the outside. A dream. A fantasy. A sentence people wanted to say, but never could. Jordan are going to the World Cup. That sentence had waited for decades. And now, this generation had a chance to make it real. The qualification campaign was not easy. At one point, Jordan were under pressure. They had been held by Tajikistan. They had lost to Saudi Arabia. The road looked dangerous. The Asian Cup momentum could have disappeared. Then came Tajikistan again. Jordan were behind late. The match was slipping away. The clock was cruel. Every second felt like it was pulling the campaign toward trouble. In the 89th minute, Tajikistan had scored. Jordan needed something. Not next week. Not next month. Now, deep into added time, the chance came, and Yazan Al-Naimat rescued Jordan. An equalizer, a late goal, a survival goal. Not the prettiest goal in the story, not the most famous, but one of the most important, because World Cup qualification is not built only on beautiful nights. It is built on refusing to lose ugly ones. That goal kept Jordan alive. It kept the road open. It kept the dream breathing. Then came June 2024. Jordan against Tajikistan again. This time, Jordan needed control, and they found it. Yazan assisted the opener, then scored himself. Jordan won 3-0. They reached the next round. They also qualified for the 2027 Asian Cup. This was not just a striker finishing chances. This was a player connecting the whole attack. A player who could score, but also create. A player who could run behind, but also combine. A player who made Jordan's transition game sharper. Then the coaching changed. Hussein Amuta left. Jamal Salami came in. For many teams, that kind of change can break momentum. But Jordan kept moving. The structure changed. The details evolved. But the identity stayed. Fast attacks. Brave forwards. Quick transitions. And Yazan Al-Naimat at the heart of the danger. In September 2024, Jordan faced Palestine, an emotional match, a regional match, a match where the atmosphere carried more than football. Yazan opened the scoring. Jordan were ahead. Then Palestine equalized through Wessam Abu Ali. And suddenly, the match was alive again. This is where a striker's second goal can matter more than the first. The first goal gives you control. The second goal gives you authority. After the restart, Yazan scored again. Jordan restored the lead. The tension broke. Jordan went on to win 3-1. A brace. Another major qualifying performance. Another reminder that when Jordan needed direction, Yazan could provide it. Then came Oman. October 2024. Jordan won 4-0. And Yazan scored twice again. A brace. Another statement. One of the goals was described as a lovely solo play. An incredible finish. And that tells you something important about his evolution. He was no longer only the player who finished what others created. He could now make his own danger. He could receive the ball, carry it, beat a man, open the angle, and finish. That is a different kind of threat. Because defenders can survive a poacher by cutting off the supply. But how do you stop a striker who can create the shot himself? If you step tight, he can spin. If you drop away, he can run. If you give him space, he can drive at you. And by this point, Jordan were building their dream around that kind of threat. Then came Kuwait, November 2024, another World Cup qualifier, another moment where Yazan showed exactly why he had become so dangerous. This goal deserves to be narrated slowly, because it was not just a finish, it was a full striker's action. He received the ball with pressure near him. A defender came tight. Yazan used his strength. He shrugged him off. Not dramatically, not with wasted movement, just enough. Enough to stay on his feet. Enough to keep moving. Then another defender stepped across. Yazan carried the ball past him. Now the space opened. The defenders were retreating. The goalkeeper was setting himself, and Yazan shaped his body. This is the key. The way a forward opens the hips before a curling finish tells the goalkeeper what might be coming. But if the execution is good enough, it still does not matter. Yazan curled it. A bending finish. The kind of shot that starts outside the goalkeeper's comfort, then bends back toward the danger, into the goal. A spectacular goal. A goal made from strength, dribbling, balance, and calm. That is the full package. That is not luck. That is a player in control of his own moment. By now, Jordan's dream was no longer quiet. It was real. The team kept collecting points, kept surviving pressure, kept moving closer. In March 2025, Jordan drew away against South Korea, a valuable result. A result that showed the Asian Cup was not a miracle. Jordan could go away to one of Asia's strongest teams and still stand. Then came June 2025, Oman away. The decisive window, the match that would help decide history. Ali Olwan became the headline that night with a hat-trick. Jordan won 3-0 inches Muscat. Then South Korea beat Iraq. And finally, the sentence Jordan had waited its entire football life to say became real. Jordan had qualified for the FIFA World Cup. For the first time ever. Think about what that means. Every Jordanian fan who had watched World Cups without their flag. Every child who had picked another country to support because Jordan were never there. Every player who grew up dreaming of the tournament but never saw the path. All of them now had a team. Their team. At the World Cup. And even though Yazan did not score in the exact match that confirmed qualification, his fingerprints were all over the journey. 8 goals in the campaign. Late rescue moments. Braces. Solo finishes. Assists. Pressure performances. The road was built through his work. He helped build the runway. And Jordan finally took off. But football has a cruel sense of timing. Because the story should have become simple here. Yazan Al-Naimat, the striker from Sahab, the Asian Cup hero, the World Cup qualifying weapon, walking onto the biggest stage in football, wearing Jordan's shirt. In Jordan's first ever World Cup, that should have been the ending. But it was not. In December 2025, Jordan faced Iraq in the FIFA Arab Cup quarter-final. The match itself ended with Jordan advancing. Another big result. Another step for a national team living through a golden age. But for Yazan, the night turned dark. He suffered an ACL rupture, an anterior cruciate ligament injury, one of the worst injuries a footballer can hear. The kind of injury that does not just take you out of a match. It takes months. It takes surgery. It takes lonely rehab. It takes walking again, running again, turning again, trusting your knee again, trusting your body again. And for Yazan, the timing was devastating because the World Cup was close. The dream he helped create was almost here. Jordan were preparing for their debut on football's biggest stage. And he was preparing for surgery. Days later, he underwent surgery in Doha. Jordan continued. Jordan even reached another final. The team kept moving. And that is one of the most painful parts of sports. The game does not stop, even when your world does. The fixtures continue. The teammates train. The country gets excited. The squad is announced. The tournament approaches, and the player who helped make it possible has to watch from the outside. By 2026, it became clear Jordan would go to the World Cup without Yazan Al-Naimat, their missing striker, their transition threat, their scorer of huge goals, their man for the big night. Jordan's group was brutal. Austria, Algeria, Argentina, 3 very different challenges. Austria with structure, Algeria with intensity and talent, Argentina with history, pressure, and world-class quality. Jordan would need speed. They would need courage. They would need perfect transitions. They would need players who could make one chance feel like enough. And that is exactly the kind of player Yazan had been. A striker who could turn a loose pass into a chip, a cross into a final equalizer, a counterattack into a curled finish, a late moment into survival. And now, Jordan had to find another way. That is why his story hurts. Because he did not miss the World Cup as a player who had been on the edge of the squad. He missed it as one of the men who made the World Cup possible. And there is a special kind of heartbreak in that. To build the bridge, but not cross it. To carry the dream, but not walk onto the stage. To help write history, but not appear in the biggest chapter. Still, that does not erase what he did. It makes it more emotional. Because Yazan Al-Naimat's story is not just about being present at the final moment. It is about everything that came before it. The Sahab years, the 13 goals, the youth recognition, the Arab Cup breakout, the goal against Egypt, the move to Qatar, the growth, the transfer noise, the Asian Cup explosion, the chip against Iraq, the finish against Korea, the equalizer against Qatar, the late rescue against Tajikistan, the brace against Palestine, the brace against Oman, the solo goal against Kuwait, the 8 World Cup qualifying goals, the road to Jordan's first ever World Cup. These are not small things. These are the bricks of a national football story, and Yazan helped lay them. So how should he be remembered? Not only as Jordan's missing striker, not only as the injured star, not only as the player who could not play at the 2026 World Cup. He should be remembered as the forward who helped Jordan believe before the world did. The player who came from outside the traditional giants and forced everyone to look. The striker who made the big games feel possible. The man who turned Jordan's attack into a threat that Asia had to respect. And maybe most importantly, the player whose story proves something painful but beautiful about football. Sometimes, history is not only made by the players who step onto the pitch at the final destination. Sometimes, history is made by the players who carry the country there, even if they have to watch the destination from the sideline. Yazan Al-Naimat helped take Jordan to its first World Cup. He gave them goals. He gave them belief. He gave them moments that will be replayed for years. The chip against Iraq, the lift over Korea, the first touch and finish against Qatar, the curling goal against Kuwait, the runs, the celebrations, the roar of a country discovering what it could become. And now, as Jordan walks into the World Cup, his absence will be felt in every transition, in every counterattack, in every moment where the ball breaks into space, and fans imagine what could have happened if number 11 was running onto it, but maybe that is the final power of his story. Even when he is not on the pitch, you can still feel him in the journey, in the belief, in the reason Jordan are there at all. Yazan Al-Naimat did not just score goals for Jordan, he helped change the country's football imagination. He helped turn the impossible sentence into reality. Jordan are going to the World Cup. And even if he cannot walk onto that stage, part of him is already there. In every fan who believed, in every teammate who carries the shirt, in every memory of the goals that changed everything. The striker from Sahab, the Asian Cup hero, the World Cup dream builder, the man who carried Jordan to the door and then had to watch others walk through it.